We are Larry Riggs and Sandy Hellyer Riggs, and the title of our presentation is Diversity Issues as Perceived by Students at a Small Midwestern University in the United States. Our study's background is two main issues. African American students are underrepresented at institutions of higher learning in the United States, and more African American students than students in other groups leave college in the first year or two before getting their undergraduate degree. According to the most recent statistics, the nationwide college graduation rate for African American students is 42%. This figure is 20 full percentage points below the 62% for white students. The situation evoked by these statistics seems unacceptable for at least three types of reasons. First, a greater degree of diversity in colleges and universities is desirable because diversity in such institutions prepares all students to work in an increasingly diverse workplace. Secondly, greater diversity in colleges and universities is an important step towards social justice. And thirdly, diversity improves the quality of education in general for all students. Educators need to know what African American students' experience is compared to their white peers in their own words, in order to know which programs are working or what needs to be done so that African American students can be recruited and retained to obtain their degrees at higher rates. Most of the studies that have looked at African American students' perceptions have been about why they leave higher education. Many of the early studies were quantitative studies. Also, most of those studies had been conducted at large, public, research-oriented institutions. Qualitative studies, on the other hand, can provide rich data on African American and white students' experiences, allowing them to articulate the numerous issues which they consider when forming their perceptions of their college experience. Studies such as ours, that permit students to voice directly their subjective perceptions of their experience of diversity or of the lack of diversity on particular campuses, provide important context for quantitative data. Such qualitative studies add experiential flesh to the bare bones of statistics. In addition, our study differs from many others in that it looks at students' perceptions of a small, private, predominantly white Midwestern university in the United States. Qualitative studies using reflexive photography, in which the participants share in the definition of the meaning of their photos, can enhance their spoken descriptions by providing a lens through which the researchers can analyze and synthesize students' experiences, while also limiting the influence of the researchers' own biases. This equalizes the selective and interpretive power so that researchers are not determining the issues raised nor the responses, and so that the participants are empowered to use their own biases. Perka et al. Conducted the study that we identified from the literature as the principal precursor of our own current research. The Perka study was a qualitative study using photographs taken by 3 white and 3 African American students who were asked to take pictures to, quote, show us what, name of college given here, means to you, end quote. The student participants had been on campus for at least 2 years, so the study avoided the possible limitation of eliciting only first impressions. We note, however, that first impressions are critical and that systematic study of first impressions would be desirable in the future. In the Perka analysis, photographs were coded for subject or content and, quote, the significance or meaning as interpreted by the participants, end quote. The results showed differences between the white and African American students. The African American students took fewer pictures of buildings, open spaces, and campus landmarks. In terms of meaning or significance, the African American students took far fewer photographs for aesthetic reasons or because of the historical value of the content. They were, quote, more likely to take photos of frustrating or challenging situations, of scenes of problems, struggles, obstacles, or chores, end quote. The photo-elicitation interviews in the Perka study revealed that the groups of students had different approaches. The white students appeared to feel, quote, a closer attachment to the folklore, traditions, and beauty of the university, end quote, and their frame of reference was general rather than personal. The African American students' photographs, on the other hand, were more personal and, quote, not so specific in landmarking or identifying this particular university that they could only have been taken there, end quote.
Another study, the Harrington and Lindy study, also used photography as a means of collecting data about students' impressions of their experiences on campus. Students were asked to record in writing the time of day and date of each picture, its intended subject, its meaning to them, their thoughts and feelings at the time, and what might have influenced those thoughts and feelings. Based upon the previously mentioned studies, the purpose of our study was to compare from a phenomenological perspective, second-year African-American students' perceptions of a predominantly white, private, small university in the Midwest, to be referred to here as PC, with the perceptions of their white peers, and to have students describe what had influenced their perceptions. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, private colleges in the middle of a large metropolitan city with an ethnic composition comprising 69% white, 25% African American, 3% Native American, 4% Hispanic Latino, and 2% other. In the fall 2011 semester, PC had 4,034 full-time undergraduates. There were 102 international students, 136 African American, 101 Hispanic American, 110 Asian American, 13 Native American, 1 Hawaiian Pacific Islander, 31 of 2 or more races, and 3,346 white students. The participants in our study were 4 African American and 3 white students who had been at the university for at least 2 years. The students were randomly chosen from the pool of available African American and whites at PC. We found that most of the studies that looked at African American students' perceptions were quantitative studies conducted at large public research institutions. Studies such as this one permit students to voice their subjective perceptions of the experience of diversity or the lack of diversity. After the participants in our study signed an informed consent form, they were given a demographic questionnaire to complete. They were given a disposable digital camera and were told to take pictures of what PC means to you. No other instructions were given, so they could feel free to take pictures of whatever they chose. A notebook was also given to each participant to record for each photograph the day of the week, the time of day, what they were photographing in each picture, what each picture meant to them, what thoughts or feelings were evoked when they took each picture, and what might have contributed to the thoughts or feelings they had at the time. Once the pictures were developed and notebooks collected, the participants were given a set of prints and their pictures and told to arrange them in the album that we had given them in any order they would like to discuss them in their individual photo-elicitation interviews. Each interview was audio taped with the participants. We then listened to all the audio taped interviews, transcribed the contents, and reviewed each photo album and notebook to begin to develop some constructs about the participants' perceptions of PC. We held focus group meetings with the participants to present the initial constructs that we had come up with. The meetings were audio taped and served as further member checks and forums for more information gathering. After coding and sorting the data units from pictures, notebooks, photo-elicitation tapes, and focus groups, broader constructs begin to emerge until finally 6 themes or constructs become apparent. They were 1, the beauty and the physical environment of the campus, relationships made at PC, institutional size and location, personal and intellectual growth, diversity, and challenges students at PC. Some implications that we derived from our study. One is that PC needs to cultivate more diversity in both the student and faculty populations. Recruitment and retention of minority students and faculty need to be higher priorities at PC. In fact, some of the participants expressed concern and anger that PC doesn't do much to retain African students. African American students revealed they think they were misled by PC recruiters regarding the number of African American students on campus. They said that brochures make potential students think there's more diversity on campus than really exists. African American students said they're often the only African American in their class, and that faculty ask them questions regarding diversity from their perspective based upon their. Littleton called this phenomena being a black spokesperson. There is diversity within groups that are often seen by others as monolithic. Another implication was that new student orientation, while fun during its 1 week, did not continue long enough, and participants often felt alone because there were no further social functions being offered by the university. Also, most students noted they had made some friends through classroom experiences and interactions. Faculty at PC need to be encouraged to utilize structured group exercises like collaborative learning as part of their coursework and to be rewarded for doing so. Faculty development needs to be better defined at PC. The African American students in our study said that they'd like for other ethnicities to learn about their culture and the learning environment of the classroom an ideal place. The recommendations that we came up with from our study: there needs to be a forum for minority voices at PC, a diversity office that communicates more with students and faculty at PC. We attempted to obtain data from the Office of Diversity for our research, but were never able to communicate with anyone by telephone, email, or visits. Sensitivity training should be offered to all new students, faculty, and staff. Many of PC's students come from rural areas and small towns where there's very little diversity. Unless changes are made, most students will graduate knowing no more about diversity than when they arrived on campus. Minority recruitment. According to the demographics and the perceptions of the students in our study, PC needs more minority faculty and students. Minority students need minority faculty as role models. A faculty peer mentoring program. Freshmen would benefit from a faculty peer mentoring program to help ease their transition into the new academic and environment. Grants and scholarships. All of the participants in this study worked while taking 15 to 18 hours of classes each semester. More grants and scholarships would be a good recruiting tool to attract students who might not otherwise be able to afford to attend. And future research that might focus on first students. In conclusion, the final data analysis from our study showed there were similarities and differences between the two groups. The specific descriptions were highly individualized, and aspects of campus life affected each participant differently. The African American students in the study told of incidences of discrimination that had happened on this campus. Based upon the perceptions of the students in this study, PC needs to continue working toward the diversity goals of the university.